Stitchers, I'm Amy. I'm the Globetrotting Stitcher, and I'm really happy to be spending time with you again today. It is Sunday, January the 30th. I'm still trying to figure out how we're already at the end of January because it feels like we just started the new year. And I don't know about all of you, but it does feel like things got off to a rush very quickly. I was telling a coworker this week that I had this beautiful vision in my mind that the year would just kind of gently ramp up and it wouldn't be too crazy, and it hasn't been anything like that at all. We've just hit the ground running, and that's the way it is. So lots of busyness going on around here for both Gary and I. Although I did manage to sneak in a quick trip down to Acorns and Threads last weekend, which was nice. It was really fun to just get down there and poke around. It'd been a few months since I'd had a chance to visit, and so you know, anytime you go to your LNS, and especially a good one like Acorns and Threads, you're bound to walk out with a few goodies. And so I've got one or two things to share with you later today. But anyway, that was a really nice trip. I also there's a really great crafting shop that's not too far from Acorns that I love to go to when I'm down there because it's such a long drive. And so I spent a little bit of time poking around there, got a few things there as well. So it was just a nice day, and it was fun to get out in the midst of all of the other stuff that's going on. But other than that, things are just kind of, you know, rolling along like usual here. Not a whole lot of life updates to share. So we'll just dive right into the stitching. So let's look at the whips that Gary and I have been working on since our last video. So the first thing I have to show you is my full coverage design. I am stitching Rose Trellis in by Heaven and Earth Designs on a piece of 28 count white Lugana. I am stitching 2/1 on this. And the last time you saw it was right after my holiday break, and I had made a tremendous amount of progress just because I'd been on vacation and I'd had a lot of stitchy time. And so I had stitched quite a bit of the pink siding and the window in this. It's like a tower in the inn. And so I had done quite a bit of stitching on that. And this week, I've been working on it this week. I get to work on it again today. Today will be the last day in my rotation. We've got a snoring Sophie over in the corner. So if you're hearing some odd background noises, she's having some dreams over there. Anyway, I've got another day to work on this, and this week I haven't been able to make quite as much progress as I would like. It's just been a busy week. In fact, yesterday, Saturday, normally on a weekend, like a Saturday, I can count on at least getting about 500 stitches, usually more when it comes to my full coverage. Yesterday I got like 100 stitches. I mean, it was fewer than I got on a weeknight of stitching. So it was just a busy day. But anyway, here's where it is now. I'll stop rambling and just show you. So as I said, I will be working on this today. So this will be a little bit further along than you see it now. But I put in just more of the siding, a little bit more up here. So you're seeing more of this windowsill coming through. But I think the big thing, and this was the thing that I had talked about the last time I showed it to you, was I had started stitching this woman who is in the window here. And so I did manage to get more of a chunk done here, and you can see the person. There's a little bit of stitching left to do on here, but she's mostly filled in now. And as I was working on it, I was remembering, I was thinking, so a couple of years ago when I first started watching Flosstube, one of the first Flosstubers I discovered and really got hooked on their channel was Blitz Stitch, Brian. And at the time, Brian was working pretty steadily on another Heaven and Earth design chart by the same artist, Randall Spangler, who drew this. And he was working on one called Autumn Magic, and it was another beautiful kind of Victorian style house, but it was like an autumn scene at night. And I just, first of all, really, really enjoyed watching him work on that. It was a beautiful design. But a couple of years ago, I remember him saying that he had decided that he was going to UFO the project. For those that are not familiar with that term in the context of stitching, a UFO is an unfinished object. And usually it's either a whip that is languishing and forgotten, or it's one that someone has intentionally said, I'm just not going to work on this anymore. And in Brian's case, that's what he said, was that he was just not going to work on it anymore. I keep holding out hope that he'll decide to go back to it, but I don't think he's going to. But at the time he had said that, you know, someone else was working on the same project as he was, and they had gotten to the section where they were stitching the people in the design, and the people were pretty blobby and indistinct. And, you know, Brian gave that some thought, and he had decided for him and for his enjoyment of the finished piece, that was, he didn't want to have blobby people. He wanted the detail. And so, you know, he just didn't want to continue putting the time and effort in on something that he wasn't going to be satisfied with the finished product. And that's always been kind of in the back of my mind as I've been working on this one, and kind of wondering what it would look like when I got to the people in this design. And I'm bringing that up because, so from a distance, you get the sense of the person, you get the sense of their face. You can see, okay, there's the shape, you know, where the eyes are, there's the hair, there's the general features. But it's pretty blobby and indistinct. And when you get closer up, she actually looks like a person you wouldn't want to run into in a dark alley. She looks kind of like a monster from a movie a little bit. I mean, and I think, you know, short of having an absolutely outrageously massive design that would enable you to get a really good level of detail in a face, I think this is, you know, this is not a criticism of the charting. It's just, that's the best that you can do given the size of the design and the number of stitches you have available to work with. So it's fine. You know, I think for me, I'm happy to continue working on this. As far as where, you know, the distance people that will, you know, when it is finally finished and on display, the distance that a person is going to be standing at to look at it, they'll get the sense of the person. And that's fine. That's good enough. But I have to say I was a little, not surprised, but a little bit disappointed just to see how blobby her face turned out and how indistinct. I was really hoping that she would be a little bit more detailed and a little bit more recognizable as a human being than she is, but it's fine. You know, and again, for me in this design, the people are sort of incidental to the design. It's the house and the grounds around it that are really the central theme. So anyway, just some thoughts on that as I've been working on it this week. I am still happy with it. Wish that she was a little bit more detailed, but it's fine. So at any rate, this is where I am right now on this design, and not as much progress as I would have liked this week, but that's just the way some weeks go. And so we'll see what we can get done today. But there we are on Rose Trellis In. All right. Okay, the next piece that I am going to show you is my travel stitching. This is another one that I have. This is such a poor neglected piece. I feel terrible because I have not worked on it very much. I think I've put in stitches on it maybe twice since the last time we updated you. And it hasn't been making a regular appearance in videos just because it's not getting a lot of love. And so I think the last time we showed it to you, I was still working in the church. I was kind of working down one side of the church with doing the fill-in, and I had stitched in the trunk of another of the evergreen trees that flank the church. So, as I said, not a lot of stitching on it this last time, and excuse the hoop marks, I didn't have time to iron. But this is where it is right now. There we go. So I am very close now to being finished with filling in all of the siding on this side. I've just got a couple more rows of stitching, and then that side of the church will be fully stitched. And then I stitched in most of I think I've got one branch of the evergreen boughs left to stitch in on this tree, and then that tree will be done. So yeah, not a ton of progress, but progress is progress. I'm not going to argue with what I'm able to get done. I used to be able, you know, a couple of years ago, pre-pandemic, I was able to stitch, you know, 5 to 6 travel pieces a year. And just being working at home and all of that, I just don't get as much travel stitching time as I once did. And so particularly for this piece, I started it in July of 2021. And I might be at the halfway point. And it's not a big design. It's just moving slowly, but that's okay. I like it. And we're making a little bit of progress as we go. And so we'll see how we do. We'll see how we do. So, but anyway, that's where I am right now on Silent Night. Oh, I should have said, this is Silent Night by Country Cottage Needleworks. And I'm stitching it on a piece of 32 count light blue Lugana. Okay. And the next whip that we have to share with you is Gary's. So Gary, I don't know if you want to talk about, well, let me just say Gary is stitching Captain America by Awesome Pattern Studio. It's an Etsy shop. And he's stitching this on a piece of 16 count pewter Aida using the called for DMC. So Gary, I don't know what you might want to talk about as far as where you were last time and what you did.
I don't know. Sorry, I don't know. I just learned a new term today. It's called UFO. So I don't know. Maybe I want to finish it, but I haven't really had much time to myself. And when I do, I like to do other stuff too. And that means two, not as alone, but you know, I'll get to it. But you can see between that time, the last time that you saw it, there really wasn't much done, but I've actually done quite a bit since then. I'm still close to finishing the page, I guess, but not quite finished. Anyway, that's where it is now. I'll do some more work on it.
Did you put in any of the purple this time, or was it all the blue?
The blue, and finish the purple.
Okay.
So there's no more purple to do in that page. So everything, even all the way, you can see there's like spots here and there. All of that's done in purple. So I'm now doing the blue, and you can tell just by looking at it that I don't really have much more blue to put in. And then I think it's black, and then I'm looking at the thing over there, and then it's black, and then like 2 or 3 other colors, but they're only in like 5 squares, if you will, right? So there you have it. But we're thinking of, if you look at the A, we're thinking of not painting, thinking of stitching that in white, along with the shield spaces. But we'll see once it gets done. I think we talked about that. If we did, anyway. So that's where I am now. Hopefully there will be more next time. But I got a bunch of projects that I've got to get done. And a couple of them are actually paying, so you know how that goes. Anyway, so that's where it is.
Yeah, Gary often says he's not a cross stitcher, and unlike me, he does not. He's not like an every night stitcher. I have a tendency to stitch every day to the exclusion of other things, and Gary is a more well-rounded person in that regard. But one thing I will say, I feel like the blue that you stitched in this time, even though you didn't put in a high quantity of stitches, I feel like that blue makes a huge impact, and it's just like I don't know, it gives it a bit more dimension. Yeah, I agree.
It's just a dark color.
Mm-hmm. So I think it looks good.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Okay. So that's it for our whips and things that were already in process. Now I have some new starts to show you guys. So the first one is in my seasonal category. This is a designer who is, I'm stitching for the first time. And this is Par une nuit enchantée by Couleur d'Étoile. I am stitching it on the called for linen, which is 40 count anthracite linen by Zweigert. And this is the first time I've stitched on 40 count. So it's definitely different than 36 count. I think 36 count is probably my sweet spot. I do really like 36. I can stitch on 40, but I did find it more challenging to do that and I think there's a factor to that, which I'll talk about here in a second. I am also stitching this with the called for flosses, although I have made a couple of minor changes. So let me show you what I've done so far, and then I'll talk about this design. Not bad for a brand new start, I must say. This is a design. It is close to 50% finished already, which is pretty impressive for only having put in a week on it. And so as you can see, it stitches up quite quickly. And I had a lot of fun working on this. So I don't know how well this will translate in the video or in Gary's photos later. But the major change that I made to this from what is called for, the chart just calls for all of the white in the design to just be stitched in a bright white. It's DMC 5200, B5200. What I decided to do to just bring a little bit of extra shine and sparkle and kind of that snow effect to it is I am stitching it with a single strand of B5200 with a strand of blending filament, of the Kreinik blending filament, and I'm using just like a shimmery silver white for that. And I am really pleased with that decision. I think that it actually adds a lot. Again, probably not translating super well on camera, but in person, it just gives it just enough of that little bit of shimmer that it actually has that snow effect that you get when you look at snow on a bright sunny day, and it's got that beautiful sparkle to it. That translates really well in this. Now, I'm not using the blending filament in the white that you stitch in the animals themselves, because obviously animals are not sparkly. But in the sleigh, in the presents, in the trees, and the snowflakes, and all of the other elements of the design that are white, I am using the blending filament. And that, I think, has been a factor in why it's been a little harder to stitch on the 40 count. Because blending filament, although it's not one of the more difficult metallics to stitch with, it is a little bit fiddly. And so it has slowed down some of the stitching process a bit, and I think has also made it a little bit more tricky to stitch on the 40 count, but not overly difficult, just, a little bit. So that's been the major change I've made to what was called for. The other thing, and this is not so much a change to what is called for, is just an alternative. So as you can see, there's several animals in here. There's this adorable little owl. There's a squirrel. Down in here, there's a fox. And then we've got like a baby deer and a bunny. I had actually stitched most of the fox when I was working on this last week. And the squirrel and the fox, the called for floss is Apple Cider by Gentle Arts. And I'd already done the squirrel. Like I said, I had done most of the fox, and I was just not happy with how they were looking. There's a DMC that's a darker color that's supposed to be an accent for both of those animals. And it actually, just because of dye lots being what they are, the apple cider was blending right in with that. And so I wasn't getting any variation between those two flosses at all. And also just the apple cider that I have definitely is trending toward the like brown with a little hint of orange to it. And in that photo of the chart, as in the sample, they definitely have a more of that slightly more reddish tone to them. And there's a definite difference between those colors and then the DMC accent that's used. And so I was looking at the chart again, and I realized that there's an alternative that the designer offered to the apple cider, and it was a variegated DMC floss. And so the more I thought about it, the more I was like, I think I'm going to give that a try. So I did track it down. I had to order it from 123 Stitch, and it just arrived yesterday. But I went ahead and pulled out all of the stitching that I had done on the fox. And so the next time this comes out, I'm going to restitch that with a DMC instead of the Gast, and see how much, if I like that better. And if I like that better, I may also pull out the stitching on the squirrel and redo that. So we'll see how it turns out. It's not a major change, but I think I'll be happier with it. But at any rate, I had a lot of fun stitching on this. I think it's really, really pretty, and I'm looking forward to working on it again. Depending on what my time looks like the next time this comes up, I might be able to get it finished. So that would be my fond hope, but I don't want to get my hopes up too much because the stitching on this side of the design is pretty dense. So it might be a bit of a long shot. But anyway, I think that's a really solid start on a very pretty chart. And I was able to use this chart in Pattern Keeper because it's a PDF. And so I think it's always fun to kind of work on a piece by a designer you haven't worked on before. And this has been really enjoyable. So it's lovely. All right. Next is another new start. And this new start is the inspiration for the title of this video, which is Running Amok in My Rotation. So those of you that watch me on a regular basis or have been with me for a while know that my approach to my stitching is I have a very disciplined approach to the schedule and the rotation that I use. As I've talked about in other videos, for me and just my style of stitching, what keeps me motivated and what I want to have in my stitching is regular progress, regular finishes. And so although I definitely, like every stitcher out there, I get bouts of startitis where I want to start all the things. Sometimes it's really hard for me not to start something new if I'm really excited about it. But I have found that for me, having that discipline of not allowing myself to start things, I make more progress and I'm happier because I have finished products. And so I have, I enjoy watching all of the stitchers who have 40 and 50 and 60 whips. And I think it's just super fun to see all the things they're working on. But as much as I would love to have like a start on everything, I get more satisfaction personally out of having finishes. So all of that to say, many of you know, I generally don't start something new unless I have just finished something. And when I do start something new, it corresponds as far as what it is to, so if it's a seasonal piece I've just finished, I start a new seasonal piece. If it's a fancy lady I have finished, I start a new fancy lady, and so on. So there's a lot of kind of discipline and structure around my rotation. So this start came out of nowhere, and I'm blaming is a strong word. This happened for two reasons. So first of all, I'd been feeling startitis, and this is a piece that I've had the itch to start for a long time. And back around the holidays, I was watching, so Jemima, the rocking stitcher. If you're not watching her channel, I hope that you do. She stitches a lot of really beautiful full coverage pieces. And she is one of the Dutch stitchers who is part of, they call themselves the Stitchketeers, and it's a little group of Dutch stitchers who are all good friends, and most of them make Flosstube videos. And I love watching their videos. They're a lovely group of ladies, and I really enjoy their friendship and all the beautiful things they stitch. So Jemima, it was one of her year-end videos for 2021, and it wasn't her whip parade. I think it was the video before that. And she was showing, someone had sent her a random act of kindness. They had picked a chart that was on her HADE, her Heaven and Earth Designs wish list, and gifted it to her. And she showed it, and I was like, oh, because it's a chart that I've had in my stash for a while, and I've wanted to start for a long time. And when I think about what the next thing that I'm going to start when I finish my current full coverage in 3 years, it's usually been this chart. And if I had just seen Jemima show it, I would have gotten all excited about it. And then I would have been like, control yourself, woman. Just stick with what you've got. You can start it in a couple of years. I would have been fine. But then I went to Acorns and Threads. And while I was in Acorns and Threads, I found myself tootling on over to the Easy Grid fabric. And I've wanted to try Easy Grid for a while for full coverage because it looks like it makes things so much easier as far as counting and accuracy and kind of speeding up the process a little bit. And you guys know how these things go. I went from, I'm just going to look at the Easy Grid fabric to, oh, look at that size. Oh, I wonder how that would work for this. And then pulling out my phone and checking the dimensions of my chart, and then pulling up the calculator and plugging in those dimensions and realizing that that piece of fabric was actually the perfect size for this chart, and thinking, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and just buy it so that I have it 3 years from now when I'm ready to start this chart. And then taking that fabric home and starting the chart the next morning, because I completely lost control of myself and I don't know what I'm doing. So I have a new start on a full coverage piece that I don't have a spot for in my rotation, but it's fine. It's fine. So this is Port Mauve Butterfly. Butterfly Port Mauve. I have that wrong in my notes. It's called Butterfly Port Mauve. It's a Heaven and Earth Designs chart. I have started it on a piece of 28 count white Easy Grid Lugana. And this is where I am right now. So as you can see, very teeny tiny start. I've put in 3 days on it. And what I'm going to do with this, what I decided to do, since I don't have a spot in my rotation for it, is I want to make it a goal to get 1,000 stitches a month. And I can do that if I average 250 stitches every weekend. So on Saturdays and Sundays, the first thing that I want to do is pick this up and put in 125 stitches and then put it away. And if I can stick to a schedule like that, it won't interfere too much with my regular rotation of stitching, but I'll get regular progress, small progress, but consistent. And this so far, because it's a very background heavy design, which I really like, and I love the background on this, so I didn't want to replace it with an overdyed fabric. It doesn't have a ton of confetti, so the stitching, you make more progress more quickly. I'm also really loving the easy grid fabric. I'm finding that to be, I'm like, why did I never stitch on this before? I'm finding it to be a really easy way to stitch full coverage and to cut back on some of the counting and the double counting that I've had to do on my other one. So small start, you'll see this on a regular basis. You won't see a ton of progress, but you will see it grow over time. And I'm enjoying it so far. We'll see how this kind of new approach to adding something into the mix goes. But yeah, watch this space and hopefully I don't lose control of myself and starting all of the things, because that's just going to throw everything off and I need to stay disciplined and focused. But this is my start on Butterfly Port Mauve. Okay, I have one piece of haul that I'm going to share with you guys, and then we'll wrap up by talking about what we're going to be working on over the next couple of weeks. So as I said, I did make my little trip to Acorns and Threads, and in addition to the easy stitch fabric that got me into trouble, I did pick up one chart, which I think shows admirable self-restraint on my part as far as purchasing, because there were a lot of other things that I really wanted to bring home. This is one that has been very popular. It was just released in the last couple of months. And so I know a lot of folks have been seeing this and picking this up, but I thought it was lovely and I couldn't resist it. It's This Joyous Season by Plum Street Samplers. I really, really love this. I think it's gorgeous. And interestingly, when I had seen pictures of the chart, I didn't realize, I thought the house was like a plaid, which was part of the big appeal to me. And so I debated with myself a little bit when I saw it in person, because the house isn't actually plaid. It's more of a brick effect, but it's fine. It's beautiful. I loved it. So I don't have this on my immediate radar. I don't think I'm going to be stitching it anytime in the very near future, but I'm really happy to have it in my stash, and it will get stitched up at some point in time for the holidays. So that was my one little chart piece of haul that I picked up. Okay, so over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be working on a few things. I am going to put in, as I said, one more day on my full coverage piece, Rose Trellis In. I'll see how much farther I can get on that. I will be spending a week working on the Floralia sampler again. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what I can accomplish on that. As you all know, I passed the 50% mark and I'm now in the bottom half. So it'll be great to see what kind of progress I can manage there. I will also be working on Royal Holiday, which is my fancy lady. And I don't anticipate being anywhere near to a finish this next time, but I'm definitely closing in on that finish. So it'll be great to see just how much closer I can get to that and putting that within reach. Gary will maybe be picking up Captain America. We will see what his schedule looks like. As we've said, he's going to be very busy. And I'm hoping to at least get 1 or 2 more days of stitching in on my travel piece, as well as trying to see how this new weekend schedule works out with putting in some stitches on my new full coverage Butterfly Port Mauve. So yeah, those are our plans. We hope that all of you are doing well. We hope that those of you who are dealing with all of the really difficult, cold, snowy weather in the US, we hope that you are getting through this safely, warmly, comfortably, and that you're staying safe. And so yeah, we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thanks as always for coming to spend time with us. If you are not already a subscriber, I do hope that you will hit the subscribe button and keep coming back. You can also click the little bell and get notifications every time we post a new video. Between videos, you're welcome to follow me on Instagram at I'm globetrotting_Stitcher. And you can also send me emails to globetrottingstitcher@gmail.com. So stay well and safe. We'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.